Professional Development Committee's very first brown bag session, one of many. So I hope you plan on attending more, and we hope to continue on doing this every semester. So give it up for Jessica, right? Jessica?
Yes.
For mental health.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Jimenez. I'm a psychologist and licensed clinical social worker here at the college. I work with the Wellness Center as a mental health clinician. I'm also a core member of the behavioral assessment team. So I was asked to come over here and talk a little bit about mental health. Now, I thought about, what am I going to talk about mental health when it's such a broad field? How am I going to really pin it down to what's important and what we need to know? So I started thinking about what I do here at the college and what I see as some of the biggest issues on campus right now with students that I've been seeing. So two of the biggest mental health issues that I'm seeing right now is depression and anxiety. And I really want to focus on that today and really look at what mental health is and what mental health isn't. So I'd like to start first off with just a small activity. And we're going to be looking at mental health. So I'm going to ask or state a few statements. And if it relates to you, all I ask is that you put your hand up. Okay? Now, when you hear what I have to say, think about different situations in your life. Don't just think of something very negative when you hear the word. Think about different situations in your life and think about how this can affect you in your life. So put your hands up if you've ever felt angry in the past week. Angry in the past week?
Wow, a bunch of angry people.
Stacey's went up real quick. Yeah. So who didn't put their hand up? No, nothing's made you angry in the past week? Nothing?
No lies, no.
Nothing? That is Jill.
Not even me.
All right.
No lies.
Well, for example, I went home the other day and saw my dog in the front yard. How's my dog in the front yard? I go in the backyard and there's a big hole right under the fence. So I was angry. The next day I go into my garage. I was thinking, I'm going to go for a bike ride tonight. I was very excited because I just changed the tubes in the tire because me and my son went for a bike ride and we decided we were going to go through the creek, and in summer there's a lot of thorns, so both our tires and both our bikes got flat, so we changed the tubes. I went in to get my bike. They were both flat again. And what happened? My son and daughter decided they were going to take it out in the creek again after I asked them not to. So maybe kind of angry. But that's natural, right? I mean, it's human. It's okay to have a little bit of anger in our life. Put your hands up if you've been sad, if you have felt sad in the past week. Now, this doesn't have to necessarily be something personal that's happened to you. Maybe you've heard a story. Maybe you've seen something on the news. Maybe you've heard a story from a friend who maybe has told you about a breakup or something that's happened to them. And because we're human, we empathize. And sometimes we feel sad for them. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something personal that happened to you. So put your hand up if you've been happy in the past week. Feel happy? Most people usually do. Put your hand up if you've been stressed in the past week. Yeah. Every day.
Every week.
Every day. Yeah. 8 to 5. Monday through Friday, right? All right. So all of that we just looked at, that is your mental health. Okay? The emotions that you experience based on situations that are thrown at you, that's your mental health. We have a full range of emotions. That range from positive to negative. But what happens when the negative emotions start to persist over long periods of time? It starts to affect your functioning, the way we live. It starts to affect the things we do. So when that happens, that's when we can say that, our mental health is not in a good place, and we could develop a mental health problem. And just keep in mind that you don't have to have a mental health disorder to have a mental health problem. You can have a lot of stresses and not being able to cope and not having the right resources. You can't cause you to develop a mental health problem, and ultimately, if you don't get the help you need, a disorder. So, and vice versa. A person who has a mental health disorder isn't always unstable. They can have the right support, the right resources, and they can live a healthy life, and it never affects them. But they're still living with a disorder, but they have it under control. So, what is the definition of mental health? So, the World Health Organization says mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So it's really just a state of well-being, just feeling well, being well. But they put most emphasis on the health. We all have physical health. We all have, mental health. They put the emphasis on health. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So, again, just because you don't have a disease or an illness, it doesn't mean that your health is good. You could be really struggling with a lot of issues, a lot of stress, pressures, responsibilities in your life that's causing your health to decline. So when we're looking at our own population here on campus, what we find is 1 in 5 youth and young adults experience a mental health condition. So we have, 20 to 25 students in the classroom at any time. So that's, out of those, in that classroom, it's 45 students that are living with a mental health condition. And according to the mental health research by NAMI, 1 in 4 students have a diagnosable illness, but 40% do not seek help. So it's those 40% that we really want to try to target here at West Coast College. 80% feel overwhelmed by their responsibilities. So when we're looking at that 80%, of those 80%, who on campus, out of the different student populations you have, do you think are struggling with a lot of responsibilities in their life?
Single mothers, is that your particular population?
Mm-hmm.
Single moms.
Yeah, I'm finding that in my sessions, the working adults, they have a lot of responsibilities. They've got to come to work, they got to go to work, they got to come to school, they got homework, they got responsibilities at home with their children, responsibilities maybe as a wife, as a father, and that really takes a toll on them, and it takes a toll on their mental health. 50% have become so anxious that they struggled in school. So, who do you think that percentage is really affecting? From our populations. Think about the populations that we're serving.
Maybe incoming freshmen, maybe first time in school, college.
Yeah, what do you think that's like?
Well, I remember it's just, depending where you're from, if you're used to Coalinga, but let's just say bigger school, just coming to a smaller town or whatever, vice versa, it's just a cultural shock.
Exactly.
And then, time management, all that stuff that they've never had before. Since they're in high school with their parents, now that they're on their own, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, when you're in high school, you have all that structure. You're told what time you're going to go to school. You're told what time you're going to leave school. You're told when you're going to do your homework. You're told, what days you're taking off. You're off on the weekend. You come to college and you have all the freedom to make all these decisions on your own. But that could be a lot of pressure on a student, on someone who is a very young adult, just coming into adulthood, and they're faced with all these responsibilities, and that puts a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety on them. So I'm finding the transfers, like coming from the other side of the country and coming over here, they come and they're living in a big city with a totally different culture, and now they come to Coalinga where they have no support, they have no family, they have no friends. Tiny community with nothing to do. On top of the fact that they don't have friends, there's also nothing to do here. They don't have a vehicle. It's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety that I'm seeing. And the 5 most prevalent issues most experienced by college students are depression, anxiety, which I agree, suicide, eating disorders, and addiction. So what I'd like to do is a short activity on the ABCs of anxiety and depression. So can anyone tell me what the difference is between a sign and a symptom? We're looking at mental health. What's a sign and what's a symptom?
Sign is pre, and symptom is post, you know, it's symptom.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So a sign is something we can see. So when we ask our staff or even students to look for signs that a student is in distress, or even another staff member, your peers, that they're in distress, you're looking at the physical signs. Because symptoms is not something that we can see. It's something that the individual themselves are feeling inside. So if their heart is racing, if you have anxiety and your heart is racing, or your chest is hurting, you're not going to know that by looking at someone else. Okay? Like, I'm like the biggest introvert there is. I hate being in large crowds, being the center of attention because of my personality. So when I'm faced with that, guess what? My anxiety is running high. Like right now. Can you see my heart beating fast? No?
I could.
So what I'd like to do is get your perspective on what the signs and symptoms are of depression and anxiety. So we have up here the ABCs, A through Z. So what I'd like you to do is think of a word that begins with this letter. And we're going to go through the whole alphabet to Z. So think of a word that would relate to, in your mind, to depression and anxiety. When you hear depression and anxiety, what do you think about? Okay. So we're going to start with A. Think of a word that starts with A when you think about anxiety and depression.
Anger.
Anger. Good one. Can everybody see this? B.
Bills.
Bills?
Bills.
That gives me anxiety. That.
Instant, my heart rate went up.
C.
Children can be.
That's a big one right there. I agree. Children. That was caps. D. Death. Death. E.
Emotions, I mean, that's,
Emotions.
yeah.
F. Fatigue. Fatigue, yes. Who said family? I agree.
Food.
I gotta put that one. I get it.
What about food, Jessica?
Huh?
Food, because if you're talking about eating disorders.
Food. Food. Good one. Okay, let's go to G.
Girls.
You're waiting for that one.
Anything else? G. Grieving. Huh? Grieving. Grieving. H. Home. Home. I.
Health.
Health. So yeah, you can get depressed depending on whether your health is in good or bad state. I.
Income.
Income, yes. That goes back to what Sherry said about those single mothers.
Insecurity.
Good one. J.
Job.
Job,
Job
yeah.
We'll put that one in caps. Yes.
Figured we were all gonna say all that all at once.
How about K? Yes. Children and kids. L.
Life.
Life itself. M.
Money. Mortgage.
Mortgage, yes. N,
Necessities?
what was that?
Necessities?
Necessities. Oh. Oppression, that's a good one. P, people, and I heard poverty. Q,
Qualifications.
qualifications. You really want that job.
Yeah,
You need
that's
those
what I was
qualifications,
thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, or even for students, so they qualify for financial
financial
aid,
aid.
Right.
qualify for, you know.
I've heard, and I've heard that in my
that's
sessions
always-
as
that's
well.
always a huge one.
Yes. R,
Resources, or lack thereof. Reality.
reality, yep.
Relationships.
Oh, yeah. Relationships, that can be with anyone. Okay. S,
Stress.
stress.
Sleep.
I think we all put our hand up for that one earlier.
Sleep is one,
Sleep.
lack of.
Lack of sleep, yeah.
Support.
Or too much of
Or too
support. That's a good one.
Siblings, kids, mother-in-laws.
That can go on and on. How about T?
We'll put that on them, mother-in-law. Tuition, yeah. Time.
How about you?
Utilities.
Utilities? Anybody's bill go down this month?
No.
Yeah,
I got it yet.
I don't know.
I got mine yesterday. Went down $100.
That's good.
I've been sweating though. I've been sweating. I can do it. My daughter went back to school last weekend, so I think it's gonna be good. It's gonna be better because I can live in the heat. B.
For students, some is vehicle, if that's even an issue.
Yeah,
Lack
it's a big
of.
issue. I've heard of it. I've heard about it. It's a big issue.
Violence as well.
Violence. W.
Work.
Work. X. This one always gets everyone.
The next generation.
Anxiety.
X Gen. The one that I do get when we do get it, Xanax. Why?
Some say like, you, like you as yourself, maybe.
And Z.
Zoloft.
Whatever helps. So what's interesting about this list is with the different disciplines,
Jessica, can I clarify? These are signs and symptoms of depression and anxiety, or things that can cause depression and anxiety?
we were going to do signs and symptoms, but these can cause
Okay, I just thought I lost track.
anxiety, yeah.
Because they
So-
feel like related.
Yeah, anything related. So we talked about signs and symptoms before and what that looks like. So looking at this, we'll go back to signs and symptoms. And when we're looking at the list, these are all things that can either cause anxiety or depression, things that you see, signs that you can see on a person. Maybe, what does it look like when, someone is fatigued? You see a student in the classroom, what does that look like?
They're not engaged.
Yeah, they're not focused.
Beaten down.
Slow reaction time.
Yeah.
But I see them dozing off in class.
Yeah, nodding off.
Not
no engagement. There's
Yeah.
Physical appearance, the way they're dressed, or maybe they're unusual, like their hair is messy suddenly or
Disheveled.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is all, those are all signs that we can identify. And the symptom may be fatigue, the symptom may be, lack of sleep for them. They may have insomnia, and now they're sitting in the classroom and they're tired. But it's interesting to see this list and what comes out of this list, because with every different discipline that we do this activity with, it really always focuses on who they're working with. And you guys are really focused in and tuned in on your student population and what's really bothering them. And what is interesting to me is these are all issues. Every single one of these issues that you put up here, I've heard from students since I've been here since March. All of this. And this is everything that's really affecting them, and affecting their studies, affecting their work life, their home life. And these are the things that we want to be able to really identify and really get them the help that they need, get them the support they need, so that we can start putting in those preventative measures so they don't fall into that category of students who their mental health problem just went so far as to now it's a disorder. And the last thing we want to do is hear that one of our students committed, or I don't like to say committed, completed suicide, and that's what we want to prevent. So, good job. So we're just going to look at some symptoms of depression. So when it comes to physical well-being symptoms, there's a lot of changes in their sleeping habits. So they may be sleeping more. Someone who may have went home and been very active after work, may have went to sleep at 10 o'clock, got up at 6, is now going to bed at 7 o'clock and not getting up until 6. Or they may be sleeping more frequently. You may see them going home, taking more naps, waking up for a bit, going back to sleep. On the weekends, just sleeping a lot more than usual. Or there's difficulty sleeping. Some have insomnia, some don't sleep at all. And then when they come into the classroom, you see that. You can see those signs. They're not sleeping. Changes in their appetite. For them, their symptom, they have a loss of appetite, or they're overeating. For them, that's a symptom. But what would be a sign for you? What would you notice if you saw this?
Weight changes.
Weight changes, yeah. So you may see a student who is losing a lot of weight, or you may see a student gaining a lot of weight. These are all signs that we want to be able to identify. Emotional symptoms. Sadness, feelings of being overwhelmed, hopelessness, feelings of being powerless. You might see them reacting negatively, or very irritable in the classroom or just on campus. Thinking symptoms, seeing a glass is half empty instead of half full. Having trouble concentrating and paying attention. So you see that in the classroom, they're not focused, and it all results to difficulty in completing their tasks. I'm sorry, I'm going to go through this quickly because I know Stacy's next. So symptoms for anxiety. So now this is the most common disorder in the U.S. And on college campuses. So feeling of stress and apprehension, irritability, trouble concentrating. So again, looking off in the classroom, unable to answer questions, maybe when they're called on. Fearfulness, sweating and dizziness, shortness of breath, irregular heartbeat, muscle pain and tension, headaches, and many times they will verbalize the headaches and the frequent stomach aches. And if you start to hear this a lot, you want to ask those questions, what's going on, because this may be a sign for you that the student might be experiencing anxiety. And so we're going to get past this one real quick. So how you can help. So you just really want to notice. So about 15% of students who have killed themselves on a college campus had any interaction with their institution's counseling service. So you don't have to be able to diagnose. You just need to be able to see that a student's in distress and really notice that and be able to identify that. A student might suddenly start missing class or maybe failing to turn in assignments. Someone who is normally alert, engaged, now might be falling asleep. So be able to really notice what's going on with the student. Or you might even see this with staff on campus. you see this with your peers. You want to reach out, ask them about it. Ask them, what's going on? I see things, you seem different lately. Is everything okay? If you don't want to talk to them in the, after class or in the classroom, send them an email. Have them come by and talk to you. And then have that conversation, because they may just need that support, that extra push to talk about it. And be an active listener. Just be open to what the student has to say. You might not understand what their situation is, but just lend an ear. Just be there as their support. And refer. So you want to keep a piece of paper maybe with the phone numbers to the dean's office to refer them to our wellness center so we can see them. You can also do a student concern referral, and we will get that, and we'll reach out to the student by email or by phone and get them in the center to see us. So we want to be as resourceful as we can. We also brought little cards, brought in some cards today because we're in Fresno County. Brought some Fresno County cards that has some resource numbers on there that you can refer the students to. And there's also some important numbers. So the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, anybody can call this hotline. Loved ones can call. A person who's in distress themselves can call. So it operates 24 hours a day, every single day. And then there's a Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, their helpline. So it's confidential, it's free, 24/7 as well. And if you know someone, or someone needs the help, wants the help, they could always contact them and they'll get them help. They'll point them in the right direction. We here at West Hills College in the Wellness Center, we provide brief solution-focused therapy, so it's not long-term. If we get a student who seems to need long-term therapy, we will refer them out to the community so that they can receive the services that they need, because that's out of our scope here right now. But if we see somebody who just...
So what services are available in the community?
So there are agencies in the community that have psychologists, psychiatrists, LCSWs that can offer long-term. We have Turning Point, we have Kingsview. All it takes is a phone call from us to refer them, and they can get in and see somebody, usually within the week. And then they can get set up with weekly. Some students have gone twice a week to see them, others go once a month. It just depends on, yeah.
So is any of this in Coalinga, or is it all like Fresno, Hanford, like where they need transportation?
No,
The
they
stresses,
have an
right?
agency here in Coalinga.
They do? Oh, okay.
Is it over by the plaza? Is that where it's at?
Turning Point
Yes.
is. It's next door to
Yeah,
Dr. White's
Kingsview is in
office.
Hanford, but Turning Point is. Kingsview's in Hanford, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So. And you all have a presentation that was sent to you. If you can go on and just either click on that link and provide some feedback, or with your phone. That was so cool. This person never saw that. So cool. I told her I would go to, I would see if we could do that at the hospital. Like that. So you can provide some feedback. That's it. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Probably I should have gone first and then Jessica went second, but that's okay. They're very closely tied together. A lot of the topics that we're going to talk about are a lot of the topics that she mentioned also. So there's a lot of crossover. Yeah, there we go. So today we're going to look at what stress is, some of the symptoms, a brief introduction to stress management, some different types of stressors, and then a couple of links, resources for faculty and staff that we have on campus that's available to us based on our bargaining units. Okay. So I've also included, I think, here we go.
you stepped out.
Okay.
Eric?
So I sent Erin some papers that if anybody, I think she's going to attach it to the, meeting invite that you can download. You can download this too if you want, because it's got some links on there, and you can reference those links. Yeah. And then there's also some papers that you can mark for yourself. They're kind of like worksheets, so you can track your own stressors. Is basically what it is. We'll talk about that at the end. Okay. All right. So first of all, what is stress? Well, stress is widely defined as a negative emotional state occurring in response to events that are perceived as taxing or exceeding a person's resources or ability to cope. Whether we experience stress depends largely on our cognitive appraisal of an event and the resources we have to deal with the event. So we talk about this in psych all the time. It's part of my lecture in psych that I usually do. So my example that I give to students, let's say that I've got class at 9 o'clock and I've got an exam in that class. I go out to get in my car, I try to start it, it won't start. It's dead. I don't know what the deal is. It's 8:45 and I'm freaking out right now. So here's my stressor, right? And my cognitive appraisal is, am I screwed? Am I going to get an F on my test now? Or is my cognitive appraisal, oh, well, I'll just ask mom. Mom's car's here. She doesn't have to go to work yet, so I'm just going to ask her. So in the first situation, if I don't have the resource to deal with it, if I don't have another car, if I live in Fresno and my school is 30 minutes away, or if I have no other friends that are going to that class, I'm going to perceive that as a more stressful situation, right? If I have another resource, if I have the resource to cope, I have another car available to me, or I have a friend that I know is going to that same class that I can hop a ride with, or I've got public transportation, okay? Then I'm not going to perceive that as stressful because I have the resource to cope, right? Does that make sense? Okay? So we experience stress all the time, right? Daily. There's daily things that come up that are stressful. For me, some things might be more stressful than for you, or vice versa. Okay? Again, that's our cognitive appraisal of stress. How we view it. So, coping with stress at work. First of all, I'm going to put the disclaimer out there that I am not the picture perfect, stress-free individual talking to you here today. Okay? I experience stress just like everybody else does. I cope and don't cope with stress like everybody else does. So I'm not here pretending to be the perfect, stress-free individual talking to you here today. Okay? It's an ongoing struggle that I myself and everybody else deals with. Okay, so don't feel alone. Everybody's in the same boat. Okay? And if somebody tells you they're stress-free, they're lying. Okay?
Zach.
I'm gonna take the issues out on me now.
So everyone who has ever held a job has at some point felt the pressure of work-related stress. Any job can have stressful elements, even if you love what you do. So just because you're experiencing stress at work doesn't mean you don't love your job. It doesn't mean you hate what you're doing. It doesn't mean you hate getting up in the morning and coming to work every day. It just means there's stressful things that pop up. Okay? It's life, right? But when work stress becomes chronic, it can be overwhelming and harmful to both us physically and emotionally. Okay? So there are things that we have to be careful of, be mindful of. The biggest thing that I tell my students, just in the world of psychology as a whole, is become educated. Okay? Educate yourself on your own signs and symptoms. Educate yourself on your own triggers. Okay? Because what triggers me to be stressed does not always trigger you. Okay? So everybody has their own triggers. And just becoming educated on what those are, that's half the battle right there. Right? Okay? Unfortunately, such long-term stress is also too common. In fact, the APA annual Stress in America survey has consistently found that work is cited as a significant source of stress by the majority of Americans. You can't always avoid the tension that occur in the job, but you can take steps to manage your work-related stress and how you react to those stressors, right? Okay. We all have deadlines. Okay. Accreditation was a huge stress for everybody. Okay. Putting it mildly. Okay. FTEs, that's a stressor for everybody. okay? But how we respond to it, that's totally up to each individual, okay? All right, so there are different symptoms of stressors. There's emotional symptoms, okay? And I'm not gonna read through each one of these. Like I said, this slide is available for everybody to access, okay? And a lot of these things are gonna be very similar to the anxiety symptoms that we talked about in the previous presentation. So agitated, frustrated, moody, okay? Being overwhelmed, finding it difficult to calm down and step away from work when you get home, right? Quiet your mind, find it difficult to do that. Low self-esteem, feeling worthless, and avoiding others. Physical symptoms of stress. You may notice yourself having low energy, headaches, upset stomach. Now, interestingly enough, oftentimes if we're not aware of what these symptoms may be meaning, you might go to the doctor. Gosh, I'm so tired all the time. What's wrong with me? Am I B deficient, B12 deficient? Do I need a B shot? Okay. Headaches, okay? Do I have a brain tumor? I have headaches all the time, okay? Upsets, do I have an ulcer? Well, you might, okay? Do I have an abdominal problem, right? IBD, irritable bowel syndrome? IBS. IBS, got IBS, okay? Aches and pains, did I pull something? Do I have a shoulder injury, right? Because we're all trying to diagnose ourselves, and we're trying to figure out why we're feeling these things, and we oftentimes forget to think about, is it stress? Is it emotional? Okay? We're feeling all these things because we're stressed out, okay? So keep in mind that some of these things may be due to stress. So try to reduce your stress in your life. Also, frequent colds and infections. When we are highly stressed, it reduces our immune system. When our immune system is suppressed, we're more likely to get sick, okay? So that's another key sign. All right, so cognitive symptoms of stress. So cognitive is thinking, thought processes, right? So constant worrying, racing thoughts. So with racing thoughts, do you ever find it difficult to concentrate on a task, get something done, sit down and actually do something while you're thinking of 15 other things you have to do? Weird, okay? Forgetfulness, disorganization, inability to focus, poor judgment, all of those cognitive symptoms. Behavioral symptoms. Behavioral, what we do outwardly, right? So change in appetite, either not eating or eating too much. So weight loss, weight gain, unexpected, right? If I'm going on a diet, I expect to lose weight, okay? If I'm on a expect. But if I haven't changed anything in my lifestyle and I'm all of a sudden losing weight or gaining weight, that's one key indicator. Procrastinating or avoiding responsibilities. You know, when you're stressed out, you're like, oh, I gotta do this, but I don't want to, so let me go do something else. Okay? We avoid things that make us uncomfortable. Increased use of alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes. You know, you go home from work, oh God, I gotta have a beer, or I gotta have a glass of wine. Okay. And then nervous behaviors, nail biting, fidgeting, pacing. Okay. I know one of my things is I pick at my cuticles. Okay. So when I'm super stressed, my cuticles will be all red and upset at me. So don't look at my cuticles right now. My hands, my buttons. All right, some common sources of work stress, low salaries.
Okay, I've seen you do that before.
Yeah, right?
Kind of with a clipboard though.
Yeah. Seriously, I had to leave that picture on there because that's totally me. So don't mind the bite marks on my computer. I'm gonna blame it on my dog. Excess workloads, few opportunities for growth or advancement. The work you're doing isn't engaging or challenging, lack of social support, not having enough control over job-related decisions, conflicting demands, or unclear performance expectations. These are all common sources of work stress. And I'm sure there's many, many, many more. Okay, these are just some of the more common ones. And I'm sure we can relate to some we can't. Okay? All right, now there are different types of stress. There's eustress and there's distress. Because actually, the stress isn't all bad. Okay? Sounds weird, but stress isn't all bad. Okay? Eustress is the good stress. It's positive stress. It motivates, it focuses energy. It's short-term, perceived as within our coping abilities, where we talked about what stuff we can deal with, stuff we can't. Feels exciting, it's invigorating, so maybe a new job, okay? Sometimes a new job brings us new excitement. It brings stress, but it's good stress because it's exciting, okay? And it oftentimes improves performance, okay? So eustress is actually good stress. You want to have some stress in your life, Zach.
Yeah.
You want to have some,
Negative
okay?
stress.
All right.
How you build muscle.
So positive stress results, enables concentration, increases our performance, and energizes you into motion. Distress now, bad side. In contrast, distress or negative stress has the following characteristics. It causes anxiety or concern, can be short or long. It is perceived as outside of our coping abilities, feels unpleasant, decreases our performance, and can lead to mental and physical problems. An example of negative stress. Loss of motivation, reduces effectiveness, physical, mental, and behavioral problems. It can cause actual physical problems that can manifest and create bigger problems like heart disease, diabetes, increases the risk of cancer, some cancers. Okay. So there are some real physical downsides to distress. I like to use this picture because it shows us right where we want to be. We don't want to be too low. We don't want to be too laid back, right? But we don't want to have too much anxiety on the other hand either. We want to be right in the optimal level, right in the middle, okay? We tell this to our athletes, okay? When you're getting ready for a game, you don't want to be too hyped because you become out of control. You don't want to be too low because you're not motivated, you're not intense. You want to be right in that middle range, okay? That's where you're going to get your optimal performances, right in that middle range. Same thing holds true for us emotionally, okay, and mentally. All right, so this is a really long couple of slides. Again, I'm not going to read through each one of them. But taking steps to manage our stress, track your stressors. So that's why I kind of gave these handouts, or made these handouts available. There's some checkoff sheets, okay? Because there's some things that people don't realize that are stressors or stress related, okay? So if you want to take this back to your office or when you're at home, do some checkups and see where you're at, okay? So track your stressors. This one talks about doing a journal, and that same thing, okay? Develop healthy responses. So once you decide or find out what your stressors are, what's the word I'm looking for, your triggers for stress, then you can start developing some healthy responses to combat those, right? Okay? You also want to establish boundaries. This is a hard one for most people, including myself, right? Okay? Establishing boundaries. You can only do so much, okay? It's one thing I'm having to learn transitioning to an admin position is there's times where you just got to say, I can't right now, right? And that's hard because you want to look good, you want to be there for everybody, you want to do everything, but it's not always possible, right? It's not always possible. So you got to know your limitations and be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to get that done right then, but I can get it done this time, okay? So sometimes that establishing boundaries, we're going to have to do priorities, right? Figure out priorities, okay? And then take time to recharge. I'm a huge proponent, and always have been, of vacation-ing, okay? That's a big transition. Another big transition I've had to take is not having summer off. It's drove me crazy, okay? I need my summers, okay? So whatever it is, find your way to recharge, okay? It could be a sport, it could be a hobby, it could be vacationing and traveling, it could be, whatever it is, okay? Find your thing that recharges you, okay? And then learn how to relax, I know it's simple and seems stupid, but I love to just come home, sit on my couch, turn on the TV, and veg with my puppies next to me, okay? That's my happy place, okay? So everybody find your way of relaxing, okay? Some people go and work out, meditate, there's all kinds of different methods. And then maybe you need to talk to your supervisor. Maybe you need to get some help. Don't be afraid to ask for help, right? That's another thing that a lot of people don't want to do because we feel like it makes us seem irresponsible, right? Or that we can't do our job. That's not it at all. Go and talk to your supervisor. Maybe you need help. Maybe you need an extra person to take a workload off, or maybe you need extra guidance. Okay? And then the last one in conjunction with that is get that support you need. Right? Finding that support, whatever it may be. So, awareness, know what your stressors are, know what your triggers are, find a balance, and take control. I think a lot of times we feel stressed because we feel like we have no control. Take that control. That's another good one, Dean. So true. Day and night. It's hard to turn off when we go home, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, again, find your own way of stress management, reducing stress. You can do it any one way. Read a book, music, social support, visit with family and friends. Okay, those are really good ones. Self-hypnosis, time management, biofeedback, learning how to control your breathing, learning how to control your pulse, bring those things down, okay, when you start to feel stressed. Proper nutrition, regular exercise. You know, they say one of the best ways to deal with especially extreme stress at a certain time is physical activity. So get on a bike, go for a run, go for a long walk. Here at work, you guys have those, everybody gets breaks, right? Go take a long walk. And I've seen a lot of employees doing that, and that's really beneficial because it gets those good endorphins working in your brain, okay? It also works off the catecholamines, I haven't been teaching, so it's not in my head. Cortisol, okay? The cortisol that works up in your body, yeah, from stress, you know, your body, the fight or flight response, okay? So it's a hormone that gets released for the fight or flight response, and that happens when we're emotionally stressed. Yeah. And so the best way to do that is to work it off. Right? We have a fitness lab right there. We have a fitness lab right there. You can join. It's pretty cheap. Okay. All right. So enjoy your life as it comes, and always be happy. Don't worry. Be happy, Zach.
No, this.
So the World Health Organization also has a resource. I've included that link there. They've got a nice little PDF to read through. It goes into a little more detail on stress, work stress. And then, in conclusion, stress problems are very common. The American Psychological Association Stress in America poll found that 1/3 of people in the United States report experiencing extreme levels of negative stress. In addition, nearly 1 out of 5 people report they are experiencing high levels of negative stress. 15 or more days per month. That's half the month. Okay, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. All right, so again, I've included the links to, so the CBT, that's for faculty, okay? And this is our full-time employee assistance program, okay? So this is the link for faculty, and this is the link for everybody else. Okay, admin and classified are in that one. Okay. Also, just a reminder, this is a confidential program for all full-time employees. So, just because you access these services, they don't report it to HR, and they don't put a flag on your
File.
yeah. Okay. So this is totally confidential. Okay. All right, there's my little linky thing.